Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. I'd like to welcome you to Young Martin's Reels. Today's project is going to be this Spidercast reel. I picked this up from Ken. I told him I would like to add it to my boat collection, and he decided that he'd let it go, and for a reasonable fee. So that's what I did. I saw one of these on the internet, and I like the looks of it. I like the way it was made, so I decided I would like to have one for my boat. And for now, I'm going to probably leave the braided line on it, but I'm not real crazy about braided line, so I may end up taking it off. Okay, we're going to start off by taking off the spool. All right. And now, let's see about taking the handle off. I believe it's going to be, no, I think we're going to have to take this off. And unscrew it. Yep, there it is. Now the handle comes out. We'll put those all together over there. Let's take a look there. All right, we've got a bump guard on here, which I don't, well, since it goes up under here, I'm going to go ahead and take it off. I seem to recall that maybe it's not necessary, but we're going to go ahead and crack it loose anyway and take lots of old dirt and grease in there, but nothing so bad. All right. Now, it seems to split right here along this edge, so we should be able to take this side cover off. All right, all three of those screws are the same length. Let's see if we can pop this side cover up and off. I think we're going to take the rotor off just to be on the safe side. I don't believe there's anything holding that, but let's be safe about it. And I'm right, it does separate right there. I see nothing holding that. There, it finally popped loose. I think it was just the bearing stuck in it. Yep, see, the bearing was starting to come out. And the bearing was just stuck. It didn't want to let it go. So let's see if the bearing rotates. It does. So that's nice and smooth. So don't have to worry about that. Set our rotor over here. And let's take a look at whether or not we can pull the bearing out. Or the... All right, let's go ahead and rotate this. There is our crosswind block screw that's holding the crosswind. Wow, that looks loose. Let's see if it is. Yep, it was loose. Yeah, that's much more secure. All right, we've got a worm gear in here for our crosswind. And let's go ahead, unscrew out of the axle shaft so the axle shaft can come out. All right, now with that out, the main gear will come out. Let's check on our bearing. Our bearing seems to be fine, although it is very much stuck on the main gear. It's actually working okay, and it's really stuck on there very well. So let's lubricate it good, and we're going to leave it on there. so. All right. We're going to shoot both of these bearings with a good dose of oil. Let the oil begin to soak in. Let's see what we can do from here. All right. We have an instant anti-reverse and an instant anti-reverse override. And there is no oil or grease on that at all. Okay. All right, we're going to remove these 3 screws to separate the instant anti-reverse off of here. Okay, all 3 of those come out. There's our instant anti-reverse. Now, normally you don't want to take this apart if it's functioning, and this one seems to be functioning just fine. But I do have a bit of a wild hair today. All right, when we do put this back, see this little notch right here? Okay, right here, that has got to go into that notch when we put it back. That's your instant anti-reverse override. Flip that, there we go. That's what turns it on and off. All right, let's take off this sleeve, and there's a shim behind it. Okay. Now we're going to pull out the gear with the bearing. And this bearing also is a shielded bearing, but not a sealed bearing. We're going to oil it. All right, we're going to set each of these over here. And I'm going to do the daring thing today. We're going to take this instant anti-reverse off because it feels gritty. So we are going to take it apart and clean it. Let's set it down flat. Let's see what's underneath it. Okay, it's got these 2 studs. Those 2 studs are going to ride in those 2 holes right there. I'm afraid springs are going to go flying when I do this, but I just have a desire to make this happen today. Feels like it, yep, starting to come up. We're going to try to open this up gently, and hopefully no springs are going to fly. And set it down. Oh, one part flew out. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I think both of these 2 flipped over. There they go. They're supposed to be in there that way. There they go. All right, there they are in there. There's not that much dirt in here. We should be able to fit this back onto those and get it lined up properly. But I'm going to clean all these parts. And if you look inside here, when you take these bearings out, you'll see little bits of grit and dirt in there. So we're going to clean all this up. And all right, so we're going to set that over. Well, let's go ahead and do it. We're going to go ahead and knock those bearings out. All right, there's all 4 bearings out. We'll clean all those up at the same time. Does any of this come apart here? Yeah, we can lift that up out of there. All right. Does this come up out of here? Doesn't appear to. This all seems to be stuck in there pretty good. All right, so we're going to clean this real quick and stick it back together. All right, got a cleaning done. Now, what I did find is, boy, you don't want to mess with this guy here unless you absolutely have to. It took me 15, 20 minutes to get these springs back installed. So try to leave that alone if you can. Actually, try to leave the whole thing alone if you can, but I wanted to see how it went. So here we go. We're going to put this. Oh, also, if you look down here, when you clean this guy should rotate. If it doesn't rotate, it's not going to give you your anti-reverse function. Okay, if that can't function, then you're going to have to find some way to punch this out and get down there and get this cleaned out so it can go back together. All right, so we got this in position. We're going to set this one back in. Now it's got these bumps on it, and the bumps should be facing up. All right, see them? All right, set that in. All right, with all your pins reinstalled, now you got to try to flip this over and get it to sit back on top of there. And these bearings have got to slide into these spots. I'm really thinking that I might want to try to put them in here first. Let me try putting one in. Let's see how that works. That's good. Okay, we're going to put these in here instead. I think that's going to sit more firmly. See how they kind of lock into place there? Let's blow that up just a little bit. Okay. You can see the spring, which took me forever to get reset. All right. The spring should hold each of them locked in place. Like so. Got one more to put in. Okay. With all those in place, we should be able to just set this down right over the top of it and get it to go back in. But it's going to have a screw hole. Are these all the same? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. No, they are not the same. So we got to get the holes to line up properly. I guess I should have marked this before I took it out. That would have been the smart thing to do. But I didn't do that. Okay, let's see if these holes line up. They do not line up there. Okay, let's set them this way and see if they line up. Okay. All right, I believe it goes just like that. Okay, now we got to try to set that back in there. Got to kind of, okay. All right, there's pins on this that have got to line up in holes. And we've got 2 pins here, a pin here and a pin there, and then 2 pins here. So we got the pins are the small holes. And I've got a spring trying to pop out over here. Let's get that spring back down in there. There we go. Okay, so let's try to set this up again. Okay, pins. 2 small pins together. Okay, there's 2 small pins together there. There's 2 small pins together there. See if they'll line up for me that way. Those 2 go there. Those 2 go there. All right, that seems to be how it's going to go. There we go. That's got it back together. And before anything wants to get ugly on us, let's see about putting the screw back in. All right, what I did is I went back and reviewed the video, and I saw that with this installed like this, okay, with the screw, there's our notch right there. With this lined up this way, our 4th screw was in this hole right here. So I'm putting that screw in the wrong hole. Let's go ahead and move it over here where it belongs into this hole. All right, now I believe that we had this installed properly. If we do, then we should be able to slide this sleeve on temporarily. slide this on, and we should have anti-reverse, which we do. Okay, so now we're going back to taking it apart and cleaning. All right, I'm looking at this worm gear here, and we're going to take that apart next. And I believe that we can do that by unscrewing this and removing the worm gear pawl. There we go. The worm gear pawl on that looks reasonably clean. Okay, take a look. We're cleaned up a little more, but it's not too bad. All right, now what does it take to take this out? All right, it appears that there is a slider here. It slides out, which then should allow this to go forward. And unlock. And I'm not real sure how you could possibly get that gear out. I think I figured it out. All right, there is a pin that runs through the middle of the worm gear, I believe. There we go. The whole thing comes out. There's your worm gear. It comes out like so. That dropped your gear up here, so we can take that out and clean it. Now, this should be able to slide forward and come out. And it has a lot of old crusty stuff on it. So it's good that we're taking it out. All right. That's got all of that out. Now, if I can just figure it out and put it back together, we'll be in business. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clean all this and get it ready to reinstall. Let's see if we can get this put back together now. This is actually my second attempt at this. And the reason being because the first time, I didn't remember things correctly. So, let's put it back together now correctly. All right, we're going to start off by setting this in. It has a shoulder on it and a screw hole that is made for the axle shaft right here to screw into. So we're going to set that in place first. And we'll set it down in here in this track with that facing forward for the axle shaft. Now we're going to take our worm gear sleeve. We're going to slide that in. Now it's got this end over here with the slots on it. See the two slots? Okay, those two slots. This locking bar here will fit down into like so. All right. So we're going to slide this in through the worm gear pawl carrier. Slide it in like so. And get it lined up. Okay, with that done, we're going to come back. We're going to set this gear in place with this shoulder facing forward. Drop it in like so. This one you can either have the sleeve on or off for this procedure, whichever one you want to do. Just as easy to have it off. So we'll slip the worm gear in, or drive in, and now what we got to do is we got to line this gear, or this assembly, with the gear itself. And we'll go ahead and we're going to rotate that around until it drops into the hole. There we go. And it's dropped in now. So that now, if you turn the gear, you'll see the worm gear turning as well. With that done, let's go ahead and put this little sleeve on here. That's your bushing. And this is the part that threw me off earlier, because you take this sleeve right here, and it's symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which way it goes in, and you slide it down in here, and it goes into those 2 slots. Now what was throwing me off, you see how it's sticking up? I remembered it being all the way down flush. If I had just taken a moment to inspect the other side of the case, you'll see there's actually a slot for that to fit into. So it does not go in until it is flush. Okay, we're going to slide our worm gear carrier back over now, and we're going to drop our worm gear pawl in. There we go. Then we're going to take our lock down, slip it in place, and we're going to start screwing it in just a little bit. Okay, as soon as it starts to meet a little resistance, we're going to stop. Okay, wiggle a little bit, and now let's see if we have it installed properly. If we do, we should be able to screw this in. Screw a little more, just like doing it on a bait caster. All right, and make sure that it travels freely, and it does. Now, if you are working on a worm drive that's outside of the case, I always oil them. But since this is a worm drive that's inside the case, I'm going to grease it. Now, you don't want a whole lot of grease on it, just enough that that worm gear or worm pawl can ride easily without doing itself any damage. Now, come back and put a little bit on the gear. There you go. Now, if you remember correctly, we tried to get this bearing off and it wouldn't come off, so we're going to leave it on there. We did lubricate it. We've oiled it good. I'm going to put a little bit more oil on it. I'm going to set this down inside the case. Let's go ahead and rotate our crosswind block down and out of the way, all the way to the other end. There we go. And okay, I'm going to grease the teeth on the main gear. And let's set that gear back down inside, like so. Remember to make sure that that shim is in there. Put a little grease on that. All right, now it's time to reassemble up here. First thing we're going to want to do, we've cleaned up our pinion gear. We're going to want to lubricate it. Onto the pinion gear goes our bearing, which we've oiled. And we're going to do it one more time. Okay, behind that bearing goes this bearing shield. The bearing shield. Next, let's go ahead and put it back inside the case. Get the gears to all line up. Now you got 3 gears that you have to mesh all together right there. Okay. They're all meshed. Now this guy, if you put it on that way, it's wrong. Flip it over, slide it on, and it goes all the way down. Make sure that bearing shield's on there. It is. Now we're going to come back to this that we spent so much time on before. Our anti-reverse. We're going to slide it over that sleeve. Now remember, that post right there has got to go inside that notch right there. So we're going to set that in place. And these two posts here have got to go into these two holes right there. So let's see if we can get all that to line up properly. Okay, there we go. We're in the holes. That anti-reverse is in the slot. Let's see if it's functioning. Okay, we're in anti-reverse override. Now we're in anti-reverse. Very nice. Now we're going to have to rotate this around to get our crosswind block back to where it belongs. It's interesting that this little cutout on the axle shaft here was actually rusty and nothing else was, just the cutout. So anyway, we're going to put a little bit of grease on that because we don't want it wiping off inside or all over right here. All right, now we're going to put our rotor back on. You got to line up the flat spots on your pinion shaft with your flat spots on your rotor, like so. With the rotor installed, we can now install our axle shaft. Like so. We're going to put one more coat or dousing oil on this side bearing. And then we're going to set it in place. And remember, this is the guy that gave us so much trouble getting him out. Okay, there we go. Because it didn't want to come off the shaft. Let's not forget to put in this screw to lock our rotor nut. We're going to slide on our clicker for our drag and slide on our spacer like so. That's got us down to the spool. And look at the spool, there's our clicker. Okay, it's in really good shape, but we're going to keep it in really good shape by supplying it a little coating of oil. Put a little oil on the spring too. That'll help keep it from getting rusty. All right, now let's go ahead and pop out our drags by taking this spring out. And we'll lift the washers out. Okay, it's nice and clean. Let's put in our first drag washer. There's our Teflon, it appears, and they're in really good shape. So is the keyed washer. It's keyed because it's got this rectangular notch in the middle of it. Set that in place. All right, next, hang on. Let's do a head count here. Now that's rather unusual. We have more metal washers than we do drag washers in this reel. I'm going to go back and watch what come out. It appears that they've got a steel drag washer in the bottom. And then working their way up. It's very unusual for them to be stacked up this way. All right, I went back and checked the video, and there was a metal drag washer on the bottom. Which is very unusual. Okay, so we'll start off with the metal drag washer on the bottom. We'll go to the Teflon washer. Then we're going to put a eared washer above that. Going to put another Teflon washer in. Then we're going to put a keyed washer above that. Another Teflon washer. And one more eared washer above that. And that locks them all into place once I get that eared washer over there. There we go. And there's not room for another drag washer in there, I don't believe. So that's the way it's designed. All right, let's go ahead and put our spring in. There we go, locked in. We'll set it in place, and we're going to rotate it, and that'll cause it to drop through the keyed and eared washers. As we rotate it, there, see, it drops down. Now we're going to put our drag adjustment knob back on. There's our drag. We're going to go back to here. Almost forgot to put our bump guard back on. This bump guard kind of serves a twofold purpose. It not only acts as a bump, it also retains this shaft and keeps it from being able to move out any. So let's go ahead, put a shot of oil on the end of it. Slip that back on. Let's put our screw in. Let's go ahead, and this handle has a push button that allows it to fold over. Let me back out so you can see that better. All right, it's got a push button that allows it to fold over, like so. We're going to put a couple drops of oil in there to help that operate better. Something has happened to my oil can. There we go. Apparently I stuck it into some grease, plugged up the end of it. Okay. Now we're going to put oil down the oil hole on the handle. Spin it up. All right. Let's come back to this side and put this screw back in. Now this screw gave me a lot of grief coming out. So I'm going to clean off the threads a little bit. And I don't see any damage to them. But we're going to go ahead just because and put a little bit of grease on there. All right. This screwdriver seems to work much better on this. All right, let's put the cap back on. Let's see how she works. This is the, let's raise our camera up a little bit, if we can. All right, see how she works. There is our Spidercast 50 5-bearing reel. And where did we have 5 bearings? We had one on this side, one on this side. We had one up front, and then we had the anti-reverse, if you consider, oh, this bearing. Okay. And we're going to take it out and put it into anti-reverse override so we can adjust this. We're going to go ahead and take this one out and clean that bearing. And make sure that it doesn't have grease and grime down in it. There it is. That's a tiny bearing. Everybody get zoomed in close on that guy. Okay, but it is rotating just fine. So we're going to go ahead. Don't lose that little washer in there. Give it a coat of oil. Make sure there's no dirt or grime inside here. We're going to wipe that out with a cotton swab just to make sure. All right, there's that little bearing. Slide this guy back on, like so, and then move it back into position to be screwed in. Okay, now that was fighting me a little bit going on. That being the case, I'm going to go ahead and pop it off on the other side just to see if the bail is out of alignment. If it is, we'll realign it. It's a little bit sprung, but not too bad. It's actually pretty close. But this is really dirty down inside here. And this is the spring from this side. So this one is not sprung on this side where the bearing is. It's sprung on the opposite side. So let's take this apart. Take this cover off. Clean this out on this side. Okay. Well, that's not too bad. It needs just a little bit of freshening up in there. Get the old grease gone. It's turned to glue. All right, there we go. We've wiped off the spring. We're going to set it back into its location like so. And we're going to give it just a little bit of grease in under it so that it can slide easier. Kind of like it was when it was new. Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and put this cover back on first, because that's going to help hold that spring where it belongs. We're going to put a little bit of oil right there just to help that spin better. And we're going to clean a little bit of grease out of here. Okay. Give it a little bit of oil. All right, now we're going to come back and set that spring into that hole right there. Okay, then we're going to rotate this around until we can get that boss to go into that hole, this shoulder to go into this hole, and this spring to go into this hole. I usually don't have that much trouble resetting these springs. There. That got it to snap in. All right. And manual flip. Okay, let's go ahead, just for longevity's sake, and put some oil here, a little bit here, a little bit under the head of both of these screws. Maneuver, exercise it a little bit. There you go. The Spidercast 50 is going to be going out on my boat. And the drag, it's working fine. Loosen it up a little bit. The anti-reverse, instant anti-reverse is perfect. So there you have it. If you liked what you saw here on this video, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. Tell me what it is you didn't like. Maybe I can fix it. And maybe you just don't like my voice. Who knows? Anyway, if you would like to see further videos like this, please subscribe. If you'd like notifications that videos like this are coming out, please hit the notification button. For now, that's Rick Stivers with Young Martin's Reels, signing out.